fresh from Yale Drama School, our first guest wowed famed director Steve McQueen and landed a role of a lifetime.
She plays Patsy in the critically acclaimed 12 Years a Slave, and her performance has won her rave reviews and several award nominations. Welcome to Arise 360, Lupita Nyong'o.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're so happy to have you here, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
This must feel like a magic carpet ride for you. What's your life like these days?
I mean, you know, there's definitely a lot more going on than I'm used to, but I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just so happy for the film that we made a film that is not of the easiest subject matter, and that people are embracing it and interacting with it and you know, spreading it, and that's great.
You graduate from Yale, land in one of the biggest and most important films of the year, if not in the past several decades, and you land a Golden Globe nomination and become a red carpet darling. Do you pinch yourself in the morning? Have you processed what has happened to you?
I'm still trying to look for a word in the English language that you know, captures how I feel. And my dad made up a word.
What is it?
It's otheklified. And that is like a word that describes a sense of wonder that surpasses human understanding. And that's how I feel right now.
I like that. Otheklified.
Good explanation. I like that word. So let's talk a little bit about the film. 12 Years a Slave is about a freed black man who is kidnapped into slavery. And already it's received universal critical acclaim and has been nominated for 7 Golden Globes. This is huge. So tell us, where were you when you heard the news about the nomination, and how did you react?
I was in Paris. I was in Paris for the Paris premiere of 12 Years a Slave. And it was the day after the premiere, and I was listening to it over the radio with my publicist, and it was, I mean, it was like being on a roller coaster. That's the only way to describe it. You know that feeling of dread as the roller coaster goes up, and you're feeling like, why the hell did I get on this thing? And then when my name was called, it was like I was rushing down. It's horrifying and it's exhilarating, and yeah, it's like, I don't know whether I'm gonna survive it, but I did.
Did you get at least one scream out, or just jump up and down?
I screamed, I gave my publicist a big hug, and then I started to cry.
Aww. Yeah, just like a roller coaster ride.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Well, let's take a look at a clip, and then we'll talk more about Patsy.
Okay.
I went to Master Shaw's plantation.
You admit it?
Yes, really. And you know why? I got this from Mrs. Shaw. Mrs. Epps won't even grab me no soap to clean with. I stink so much I make myself gag. 500 pounds of cotton, day in, day out, more than any man here. And for that I will be clean. That's all I ask. This here, what I went to Shaw's for.
Wow.
Lupita!
So powerful.
You've won our Golden Globe, girl.
Yes, definitely.
Patsy, in many ways, she's the most powerful person on the plantation, but also the most powerless person, because she picks the most cotton, as we saw from that scene, but she's also the object of her master's obsession, which renders her at his mercy, and he's merciless. What drew you to this role? How did you land this part? Walk us through that process.
Well, really, I mean, you know, I didn't choose the role. I think the role chose me. I was just about to graduate from the Yale School of Drama, and my manager got the script for another client of hers who was also in the film, Garrett Dillahunt, and she thought I would be good for the role of Patsy. So we put me on tape in New York, and then the next week, I just so happened to be going to LA for the Yale showcase there. So I auditioned for the casting director there, Francine Maisler, and then I think it was 2 weeks later, I was invited down to Louisiana to audition with Steve. So it was 3 auditions in 3 different states.
And I heard it was a pretty unique audition. Is it true you had to perform on your knees?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that about?
Well, she said to me, before she escorted me into the audition room, she said, I'm going to do things in this audition that are probably not conventional, but I think this is what is necessary in order to do the work. And, you know, at Yale, we were taught to say yes before we said no, so I said, okay.
I said yes.
And so she asked me to go on my knees, and I did it. And, you know, it immediately puts you in a place of a submissive place, a place of less power, you know, and that was very helpful. It was actually very helpful. And then she was like a drill sergeant. She would have me do the scene, and you know, it would start from one place of despair and end at a totally different one. And then she'd demand that I begin the scene from that point of despair and go on and on. So I just kept going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. But that's what's necessary, especially coming out of LA traffic and you're in this overpowering, powered AC environment with fluorescent lights. Those things were extremely useful and prepared me to meet Steve.
Well, when Steve gave you the call and said, "You're my Patsy," what was going through your mind at that point? Was it real yet?
I mean, I had just gotten back to New Haven and I was about to leave the house to just go bask in the sun and take in the last 24 hours. And I get this call from an unknown number and he says, "This is Steve McQueen, I'd like to offer you the role of Patsy." And my heart rose and then it sunk because like I was so excited that I got it, but then again I was like, oh no, now I have to really do it, you know?
When I interviewed Steve this summer, he said that he chose you above 1,000 other girls who auditioned for this role. How does that make you feel? And did you know that you were up against 1,000 other actresses?
No, I did not know that, and I'm glad I didn't, and I hope to be that blissfully ignorant for every audition that I do, because there's nothing you can do about what other people can bring to a role, and the race is ultimately only with yourself. So I'm glad I didn't know that, and I just feel when I read the script, I just got a gut feeling that I understood something about Patsy in my gut and not with my mind, and I don't think I've ever felt that way with a role. So I'm just so I feel very blessed to have had the opportunity to do something that my gut responded to.
Wow, it seems like it was meant to be.
The film was shot in Louisiana. What was the energy like on set? I remember Steve saying it was like dancing with ghosts.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what it felt like to be there for you, because you actually shot on a plantation.
Yeah, and you know, it was the only place we could have done this, because in Louisiana, history is present and it's pregnant in the air. You know, it's so humid, and then there's the moss and the oaks that have been there since Solomon Northup's days, and they're still standing. So it's a reminder that history is really not that far away. And you know, you're taking a moment in the shade, and it occurs to you that maybe someone hung from this tree once upon a time. And that was definitely very useful, and just taking you that extra mile. And the heat, you know, that's a character of its own. And it changes the way you move, the way you relate, the way you prioritize. The heat changes everything.
That's true.
And so, but then the energy and the personality of the set was always, you know, very joyous, because we all knew
filming something as horrific as slavery.
I think especially because we were filming something like that. Khalil Gibran says that the deeper the sorrow carves itself into your being, the more joy you can contain. And that was my experience of working on 12 Years a Slave, that I was just filled with an immense joy because we were doing something important, and we were a group of artists that had come together to make this one vision come to life. And it was just such a riveting set. I mean, you know, when I look back at that time, yes, I feel, I remember the grief, but I also remember the joy.
Wow, well, did Steve help evoke some of that joy on set? What was it like to work with him? Because I've heard he's very demanding.
He is, you know, he's very demanding, and from just the type of work that he does, you watch his films and you know that he's a man in search of the truth. And he just has a way, he has an instinct for the actor's instinct, and he has a way of giving you the room to get to his vision. And that was really useful. He would say fail and then fail better. And when failure is an option, then you're freer. And I just remember once on set, he'd finished a shot, and he was so happy with it that he took a skip around the set. And that, you know, so like he's a joy to work with, and you know when you're on the right track, and you also know when you're not.
There are a lot of brutal moments in this film, and one particularly harrowing moment is when you are whipped by both your slave master and Solomon. Talk to us about how you prepared to play that scene emotionally and mentally. And I know the evening before was very difficult for you. Talk to us about that.
Well, yeah, so the evening before I shot that scene, we'd done another scene in which I needed the whips, the scars from before Patsy is that epic whipping. And it had taken 4 hours to do those scars. And so when I looked at the call sheet for the next day, I saw that it was going to be 6 hours in the makeup chair. And I was just like, I'm not doing that. So I suggested to Kaladevi, the makeup artist, that I remain with the scars on my back so that we cut our work in half for the next day's work. And I went home with these scars on my back, and I could only sleep on my belly because I didn't want to mess them up. And they just haunted me, you know. They were so present, and I was so uncomfortable. And I had trouble sleeping the whole time I was doing 12 Years a Slave, but that night I got even less sleep. But it occurred to me as I was weeping in the night that my discomfort was temporary and Patsy's wasn't. And it still makes me cry. And I had been given this privilege to bring her back to life, and it just quietened my soul and prepared me for the next day's work.
Wow.
Oh, Lupita, don't do this to me.
You're the one doing it to me.
It's getting an issue.
Is it emotionally hard to still now disconnect yourself with everything that you felt while filming?
I mean, I feel, you know, the best of Patsy remains in me. The lessons I learned about the value of presence and being in the present moment, I feel like that lesson is what's helping me survive this season. Patsy had to live in the present moment because she had a master that was volatile and dangerous. So she had to be prepared for anything at any time. And that lesson, living in the moment, was just reinforced for me. And so that remains. I'm happy to say that I don't live in a state of grief, even though it seems like I do right now.
Not at all.
But yeah, I feel like the best of Patsy will remain with me forever.
And with all of us and everyone who watches the movie. So let's get our eyes cleaned up. Let's take a break, and we'll be back with a lot happier topics, okay?
Please.
You're watching Arise Entertainment 360.